Hey there, movie fans. Scott Movie Mantz here with a new installment of my film series that I just love doing so much. It is Rank and File. Now, after doing a couple of directors from worst to best, I'm back to doing a film series from worst to best. And this one, it's only 4 movies, but I sure do love any excuse to talk about these 4 movies and the series itself. Dun, 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 dun. Yes, I am talking about the Indiana Jones film series. I love all of these movies, even the 4th one. So let's get right to it with number 4 on the list, which is Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Directed by Steven Spielberg. Release date is May 22nd, 2008. Budget $185 million. Domestic gross is $317 million. Worldwide gross is $791 million. Rotten Tomatoes score is at 78%. This is, of course, by far the highest grossing Indiana Jones movie worldwide. And with a budget of $185 million, it's also the most expensive movie ever directed by Steven Spielberg. Now, while Crystal Skull is the only Indiana Jones film to not get nominated for any Academy Awards, not even Best Original Score by John Williams, it is the winner of the Razzie Award for that year. Ooh, it won a Razzie for Worst Prequel, Remake, Ripoff, or Sequel. I love Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I think a lot more than most people. I think that fans didn't really like it, even though critics kind of did. It is certified fresh. But it had been 19 years since its predecessor, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And I think people were just so excited to see Indiana Jones back that there was no way he was going to be the same Indiana Jones movie. Harrison Ford is already much, much older. And where Last Crusade took place in 1938, Crystal Skull takes place in 1957. It's a different world. You don't have the Nazis anymore. Now the baddies are the Russians. It's not about World War II. Now it's about the Cold War. The world is different. The world has changed, Dr. Jones. And we really see that for the first time during the scene when Indiana Jones survives the atomic blast by shielding himself in a refrigerator. I thought Cate Blanchett was a good villain. Mutt Williams, played by Shia LaBeouf, a little predictable that he would go on to be Indiana Jones's son, but I love the return of Marion Ravenwood, played by Karen Allen. When she comes back into this movie, I feel like the movie really did come to life. The chemistry between Harrison Ford and Karen Allen was just as strong in 2008 as it was back in 1981. It's not a great movie. The movie's slow in the middle. I hated the scene with the swinging monkeys. I think the movie is better now than it was when it came out in 2008. At the time, there were expectations that this film could not possibly meet, and of course it doesn't. But now that all those expectations have died down, check it out now. It's on Netflix. All 4 movies are on Netflix. And Crystal Skull is better now than when it first came out. So do check it out. Moving up to number 3 on my list is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Of course, directed by Steven Spielberg. Release date May 24th, 1989. Budget is $48 million. Domestic gross, $197 million. Worldwide gross is $474 million. Rotten Tomatoes score is 88%. 1 Academy Award win for visual effects. 2 Oscar nominations for Best Sound and Best Original Score by John Williams. I remember when I saw Last Crusade for the very first time, it was at the GCC Northeast Theater in Northeast Philadelphia, where I grew up. I have it at number 3. Most people have it at number 2. I'll get to why my number 2 is my number 2. But I felt like the villains in this movie, the Nazis, were really, really cartoonish, especially compared to the Nazis in the very first Raiders movie. But what I love about Last Crusade are 2 things. One is River Phoenix playing young Indiana Jones for the prologue of this movie. I thought River Phoenix did a great job in capturing the spirit and the mannerisms of Harrison Ford's version of Indiana Jones without imitating them. And of course, I love what everybody loves about Last Crusade, and that is Sean Connery. When he shows up, the movie comes to life. The chemistry between Sean Connery and Harrison Ford is terrific. I love that this movie was more about a father and son reconciliation than anything. It gave the movie its heart. There's a lot of great action in this movie, and the action is interspersed with a lot of humor. I love the boat chase in Venice. Venice. I love the scene where we basically see Henry and Indy break out of the castle. I love the escape from the Hindenburg and the airplane fight. And I love the last stages leading up to the Holy Grail, where you see Indy's experience and his knowledge and his education as an archaeologist really come into play until he chose wisely. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade in at number 3. Moving up to number 2 is Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Yes, of course, directed by Steven Spielberg. He directed all of them. Release date May 23rd, 1984. Budget is $28 million. Domestic gross $180 million. Worldwide gross $333 million. Rotten Tomatoes score is 84%. 1 Academy Award win for visual effects. 1 Academy Award nomination for original score for John Williams. I saw Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom 3 times on its opening weekend at the New Orleans Theater in Northeast Philadelphia. I remember I saw all of these movies. And I think that Temple of Doom is undervalued, overlooked, misunderstood. For me, it's the best Indy sequel of them all, even more than Last Crusade, which is why I have it at number 2. There is a lot more action than the first movie or any of the films. Look at the first 15 minutes of Temple of Doom. There's the fight at Club Obi-Wan. They jump out the window into a car. There's a car chase on the way to the airport. The airplane takes off and they jump out of the plane with a raft. They land on a mountain, go sliding down the mountain. The raft goes over a cliff. They go down into the rapids until they get to their destination in India. And that's just in the first 15 minutes of the movie. Now, this is the darkest. This is the most violent of all the Indiana Jones movies. In fact, it's so dark, it's so violent. I mean, you see the kids getting tortured as slave labor. You see this guy get his heart ripped out, shown to him while it's still beating, and then it catches on fire. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, plus Gremlins. Both of those movies came out in 1984. Both of those movies were deemed as a little too dark for the PG rating. And it's because of those 2 movies that the PG-13 rating was created. So Spielberg is actually responsible for the creation of the PG-13 rating because he directed Temple of Doom and he produced Gremlins. Well, Kate Capshaw is a little grating as Willie Scott, but it's a fun character. I love Short Round, the paternal relationship between Indy and Short Round. And Amish Puri as Molaram is such a good villain that you forget that he doesn't even show up until an hour into the movie. But that is the kind of presence Molaram has in this movie. He's so strong that you feel like his presence is there the entire time. I love the dialogue in this movie. Fortune and glory, kid. Fortune and glory, and nice try, Laoche. There is a lot of fun to be had in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I think I watch this movie and rewatch it more than any other Indiana Jones movie. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, number 2 on my list. Number 1, I mean, of course, it's Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yes, of course, it's directed by Steven Spielberg. Came out on June 12th, 1981. So 2021 is going to be the 40th anniversary of Raiders of the Lost Ark. The budget was $18 million. Domestic gross, $248 million. Worldwide gross, $390 million. Rotten Tomatoes score is 95%. Winner of 4 Academy Awards for art and set direction, sound, film editing, and visual effects. 1 Special Achievement Oscar for sound effects editing, and 4 additional Oscar nominations for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Score, and Best Cinematography. And what movie did Raiders of the Lost Ark lose Best Picture to? That movie is Chariots of Fire. I saw this movie for the first time at the Eric Feasterville, and it is still a masterpiece, still a timeless classic, still holds up in every way. It is one of Steven Spielberg's greatest directorial achievements and one of John Williams' very, very best scores. This movie is inspired by the adventure serials that Steven Spielberg and George Lucas grew up with back in their day. And I love that Harrison Ford was perfect as Indiana Jones. Just a year after playing Han Solo for the second time in The Empire Strikes Back, he got this great new adventure action role with Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark. He's so rough and confident and charming and funny as a man of action. And I have to say, Karen Allen as Marion Ravenwood is just one of the very best female co-stars Harrison Ford ever had, because she was his equal. Great dialogue. It's not the gears, honey. It's the mileage. So many great scenes. The opening scene of this movie alone is so iconic when they go to steal the idol and you see Indiana Jones kneeling down to, he's, touching his beard, and he switches the idol with the sand, and then all hell breaks loose and he runs out of there. And that great shot of the boulder rolling after him. There's the great scene in Cairo with the swordsman, the big swordsman. He's flipping around the sword and Indiana Jones just shoots him. And then who can forget when the Ark is opened and everybody's face melts? Raiders of the Lost Ark is a masterpiece film. The Indiana Jones series, all 4 of those movies are good, even the 4th one, or great like the other 3. So how would you rank these 4 Indiana Jones movies? Where especially would you rank Temple of Doom? I have it at number 2. Where would you put it? Let me why. Comment below and let me know what your ranking is, what you think. Please like this video. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Yes, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Movie Mantz. Until the next episode of Rank and File, here's looking at you, kid.